So we've seen this axe before. Well, at least if you've watched some of my older videos. This axe was one that I put together as a throwing axe, but I had copper plated the head, and to keep it from tarnishing, I wanted to keep that shiny copper look. I coated it in spray paint. Well, a clear coat of spray paint, that is. And that by itself was not the greatest idea. The paint quickly peeled off the copper plating. I also wrapped the handle in kind of a wool sleeve that I made, and then epoxied it to kind of make a micarta wrapped handle for it. The idea was that this would make the handle stronger and resist like splitting and coming apart when you overstruck throwing the axe. Well, all of this was a great idea. It was kind of a prototype, but it didn't really work out that way. The micarta wrap with a few overstrikes quickly broke. Although this axe has seen a lot more than my original testing. I did take this to scout camp, and it was used a lot by scouts for axe throwing. It was actually the favorite because it threw so well. But it was ugly. That the copper plating with the clear coat spray paint just didn't go over that well. So I'm finally taking the time to redo this head and to redo the axe. To do what I want to do, I need to clear it all off, clear off all that nasty copper and clear coat, and polish it up a little bit again. I don't want to get it too polished because I've found that the copper plating sticks best to lightly polished, something that has some good groove still in it and isn't too mirror polished. I found that just doesn't work as well. So if you haven't seen some of my other copper plating videos, you should go check those out. There'll be a link in the description below. On this one though, I want to do something a little special. So I used my Cricut vinyl printer again, and this time using masking vinyl. I want to put my logo on this. Now this was attempt number one. One thing I've learned about doing new things like this is they don't always go as planned. The copper plating went just fine. I normally do a few coats of this, or dippings. The copper, when it plates, kind of creates this kind of red coppery film that once it's done, it needs to be wiped off. And especially on the first coat, it almost needs that first coat cleared off, polished up a little bit with triple-aught steel wool, and then dipped a couple more times before it really comes out with a nice sheen. And that's just what I've done here. Now I even rubbed a little around the stickers, and that is perhaps where I went a little bit wrong first off. It did start to get some of the copper the steel wool filings underneath the sticker. It plated really well again. Looks nice and good. Then the plan actually is to maybe highlight the logo a little more. And this is mistake number 2. Well, not a mistake, maybe a learning experience here. You can see if you look really closely, the sandblaster is kind of blasting away some of that sticker. And although I think it looks really neat, you can see that some of the lettering just didn't turn out perfect. So, Time to start over again. This time though, I'm going to use, instead of masking vinyl, I'm using permanent vinyl, which is a little bit thicker and should stick better to the axe head. This time too, I'm adding the word chow to the backside of the hatchet. This is a throwing axe. Don't plan on pounding any tent stakes in with this one. And really, if you're curious about the copper plating, the first one I did was a hammer. You guys should check it out. This is my extra precaution. I decided to add a second layer of vinyl stickers to the top of these, just to make sure that when I go to etch it in the sandblaster, it has a little more. And it was good that I did this also, because there's a few places where the sandblaster blasted through at least the first layer of vinyl. That second layer, the original layer, was still there to protect it and made it so I didn't have the same mistake that happened the first time around. But that's what you do when you learn, right? Now, this is where I go at it really well with the steel wool. Whereas before I did this over top of the stickers, that was one of my mistakes. I think it turned out good. I love the way that logo looks. Now to the handle. This time, I didn't plan on putting the micarta wrap on it. I'm just gonna do another handle. And I have a friend, Austin Kelly, who runs axe making or axe customizing side hustle, you could say. And he's made lots of throwing axe handles. And I'm patterning this after some of the ones that he's done, because truly he has a lot more experience with throwing axe handles than I do. So I'm making a very nice and straight, a little beefier handle than I typically make. I tend to make nice, lean handles that are normally look a little thinner than they need to be, although I think they're plenty strong. But this one's going to be a nice, beefy, thick one. It gave me a chance also to practice a little bit with my draw knife, which I haven't had a chance to do much of. Typically when I carve an axe, I use an axe to carve an axe handle. You can see that in several of my axe videos. But this one, as it's really straight, the draw knife was really perfect for it. Normally I have very feminine curves on my handles. This handle also, I didn't go with hickory again. This time I went with ash. And the grain pattern in this ash was just really nice, straight and true. Should make for really good handles. final shaping, I use rasps and a file typically. This rasp really does a good job of getting the general shape without me having to break out my belt sanders and make a huge mess in the garage. With a good 24 hours drying between coats, the handle painting was done. And with the stripes on here, I was starting to get pretty excited to get this handle put together and get that head on it. Now, for those that don't know, I've used this Plaza double boiled linseed oil, and this is real linseed oil. Some of you might be like, "Ah, he's using his hands." This is natural boiled linseed oil. It's not chemically dried, so it doesn't have any chemical drying agents that are really bad for you and cancerous. This double boiled linseed oil is just linseed oil that has been boiled twice, and it's almost kind of a honey type thickness. It works really, really well. I highly, highly recommend it. And Amazon's had it on for a great price for quite a while now. I'll put a link to it in the description below. If you're doing anything with linseed oil for your hand tools, I don't think there's really anything better you can buy. The linseed oil you might see in the normal hardware store really is toxic and bad for you. This stuff is natural and it works great, dries great, works just like the chemically dried stuff, dries just as quick, but they've actually taken the time to dry it out and to thin it rather than just add chemicals. So check that out. Here you can actually see when I pour that linseed oil, you can see that honey type thickness. I can just let it sit here right at the top of the head and soak in. It's great stuff. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. And that finishes up this axe. It is now ready for competition throwing. Actually, I don't know. Most of the axe throwing I've done has just been with scouts. But I've given this axe new life. So look for opportunities to give those old things new life. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. Ciao.